Welcome to Brave with Lisa. This space is designed to inspire, champion, and equip you to bravely walk in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for you. I'm so excited you're joining us today. Hi, welcome to Brave with Lisa. I'm your host, Lisa Bruton, and today I'm really excited because I'm going to be sharing stories around something that I'm so passionate about, which is God calling us to go away with him. Now, I'm going to share some stories more just to give the behind the scenes, how I got to that place, what happened while I was away with God, just so that we can kind of unpack it a little bit so that you can start to recognize when God's calling you to come away with him. I love in Mark 6:31, it says, "Come away with me by yourself to a quiet place and rest for a while." And also, obviously, in Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, if that's what you prefer to call it, you know, it's one of my favorites. It's Song of Solomon's chapter 2, and it says, "Arise, my dearest, hurry, my darling, come away with me. I've come as you asked to draw you to my heart and lead you out. For now is the time, my beautiful one." And, you know, just that whole chapter is about coming away with him. And, you know, it also talks about dealing with those annoying foxes. What sly little foxes is what they call it. And that let's catch them and deal with them together. So, you know, those sly little foxes are just, you know, lies that we believe about ourselves, maybe things that we're just seeing through a muggy or a dirty lens that God's just wanting to clean up. And so I find that happens a lot when I go away with him. We catch those sly little foxes, but also have such a great time together. So I'm going to share some special stories. And one in particular happened about 8 years ago when my heart was very confused. It felt betrayed, deeply hurt, and it was grieving as well. And I remember sitting out on the deck and God said to me, "Your heart's not healed, sweetheart." And I'm like, I know, God. What's it going to take? And he said, "Come away with me next week to color." I'm like, what? Color? I was like, God, color is booked out. Like, you can't get there. So it's a conference in Sydney run by Hillsong, and it's always booked out, especially a week before the actual conference. And he said, "Your friend Mel has a ticket." I was like, okay, Lord. So I contacted my friend Mel and I was like, "Mel, I know this sounds crazy, but I feel like God said that you might have a ticket for me for color." And she said, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I've just worked out I can't go." And I was thinking, what a waste of a ticket it is. So be blessed, have it. It's yours. And so through many ways, you know, because we had no money actually at the time. And so even I found like this really cheap flight to get there. And while I was on the plane, I was meant to arrive at 6:30 at night and the conference started at 7 at night. And I was praying to God and chatting to him on the plane. And I was like, "God, you know, I arrive at 6:30 and I don't want to miss a thing of what you have for me, but also we don't have a lot of money. So do you want me there for tonight or do I just start it tomorrow? Because if it's okay to miss tonight, then I'll just get a bus to my accommodation. But if you don't want me to miss a thing, I'll invest in a taxi so I get there on time." I was like, "What do I do?" And God just said, "I've got it. I've got it sorted." I'm like, okay. And while I was on the plane, I noticed that there was this gentleman and his kids. And I remember thinking, I bet you his wife's so lovely. You know how you just have those passing thoughts? And that was it. But as I hopped off the plane, this gentleman and his kids approached me and he said, "Are you going to color?" I was like, "Yes." And he said, "Well, can we give you a lift?" I was like, "Yes." And I was just so floored that God had arranged a lift for me. And turns out this guy was actually a Hillsong pastor from the Sunshine Coast where I lived. And it was just phenomenal how it all worked out. So I felt so looked after already. And then the next night, I had a full day. And the next night I was sitting up near the exit in this big auditorium. There's thousands of women there. And I got at my seat, and Lisa Bevere gets up. And as she goes to, up onto the platform, my whole body just lurched, involuntary. So I had no control of it. It just kind of lurched. And I went, oh, I need to pay attention. And so I really leaned in and listened. And she spoke about family members or people who are close in your world who have betrayed you or put a knife into your, or even a sword into your heart, and you're in a lot of pain. And she spoke about allowing God to take that sword out of your heart so that can be in your hand and you can take down the enemy. I was like, oh, that was so good. That's for me. And I was like, yes, Lord, take that sword out. Anyway, as Lisa Bevere's hopping off the platform, I heard God say to me, go down to Lisa. She's going to pray for you. I was like, oh God, you can't do that. You can't do that. A color, is such a no-no to approach the celebrity speakers and their security. I was like, I can't do that, God. And God said, she's going to pray healing and anointing over you. And I went, well, God, I want that more than any other opinion in this room. I don't care what they think then. And by then there were hundreds of women streaming past me to get out of the auditorium. And I said, well, God, you're going to have to make a way for me to get down there, because I had all these tiers to all these steps to walk down, even before I got onto the ground level where Lisa Bevere was. And I said, so make a way, God. And as I said, make a way, God, these two men dressed in black, walked past me on the stairs going down, and God just said, go. And so I just jumped in behind these two people in black, two men in black, and walked down all these tears. And it was like, the ocean parting. Like everyone just parted for these men. And so I just tucked in behind them. And so they walked down all these steps and they got onto onto the ground level. And then they just made a beeline for Lisa Bevere. So I'm just behind them. And then I don't know where they went as they approached Lisa Bevere, so I'm there just in arm's reach, and my arm reached out, and I had no control of my arm, and it reached out and touched Lisa Bevere, and security kind of turned around and very politely said, excuse me, ma'am, and tried to let me know I'm not allowed to be here. But Lisa Bevere said, no, stop. I love her. And she grabbed me, and I told her how that had touched me and what was going on in my world. And she started crying. And then she sat down and she just prayed for me. She prayed healing. She prayed for my family. She prayed for my heart. She prayed even for the night terrors that I was having, which I had told no one about. And then she prayed over my future. And honestly, in that moment, this comfort, this blanket, the presence of God just came around me. And I have never felt such comfort before. And I could tell my heart was being healed and tenderly cared for in that time. And, as she finished, she put her forehead to my forehead and just stared into my eyes. And I just knew that something extraordinary was taking place, something very holy. And then, because I'm not very cool, after she finished, you know what I said? I just went, my name's Lisa too. So I'm still myself. I'm still not cool, even in amazing God-drenched moments. But that was God calling me away, and he knew what was ahead of me, but I didn't. And it actually didn't make sense financially on so many levels, but there's something about going away when he invites you and just trusting him. And I honestly, that was so pivotal for me, and for even being able to walk out what the valley that I had to walk through. There was another time when I didn't hear the audible voice of God. I didn't, there was nothing supernatural or anything, but I just knew God was calling me away. And we were just able to make space for me to go. And again, this is in amongst some really tough stuff that I was going through with my side of the family, and like really grieving. And so, I'm away with God and I'm crying. But then whenever I'm out and about, I was just getting this immense favor. Like, even someone they gave me like a free meal and drinks on a rooftop terrace, like things that just don't happen. And I was given free makeup, and I wasn't asking for it, but it was just given to me, and it would bring me such joy. And I felt like the tender touch of God. But I remember saying to him while I was away on these 3 days, I was like, God, what is going on? I'm crying, but then I'm laughing. You're giving me favor, but my heart is so sore. Like, what is this? And he said, Lisa, I'm teaching you that you can have joy in amongst the sorrow, that you're allowed to enjoy and look for joy and do things that bring you joy, even though you're walking something that is full of sorrow. And so I guess I'm just sharing a couple of these stories because often when I go away with God, I go with a kind of a thought of like, oh, he's going to talk to me about this, or this is what's going to happen. And yet he surprises me each time, yet each time it's exactly what I need in that season. And it always brings me clarity when I go away with him. There was this one time when I had a dream, and in the dream, God basically said, go to Bali from Thursday to Sunday. And yeah, that I was to go away with him from Thursday to Sunday. And I had the dream on Monday night. And so I remember waking up going, what does that mean, God, to go away with you from Thursday to Sunday to Bali? What does Bali mean? And, I just, he couldn't have been more direct. And yet I was still trying to overanalyze it, and also couldn't imagine that he would be asking me to go to Bali from that Thursday to Sunday. And yet when the penny dropped, oh, that's what you're saying, God. I then had to go, okay, I think that's what you're saying. I'm going to lightly test some doors, and I'm going to get a couple of key people praying. Now, I didn't tell them what God had said to me. I just said, God, I think God's inviting me to something a little crazy, and it's this week. Can you pray? And so, but I called my husband and I said, Maddie, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think God is telling me to go to Bali from Thursday to Sunday. And he laughed, but he also knows the way that God works. And he said, that's fine. It needs to be under a certain amount of money to get there. And the kids need to be looked after. Like, we need to cover that. And I'm like, all right, let me just see what I can do. Anyway, so I was really able, quite a few people offered to have the girls. And so we were able to find just for them to be looked after while I was away. And then I looked at the flights, and Thursday to Sunday that week, return was $250 in flights, which is insane. It's just unheard of. And so I quickly called Maddie and I said, this is what's happening. He's like, you go, book it. And so I booked my tickets. And I even went back, like an hour later to look at those flights that I had booked. And there were no flights that were $250. It was like, for that window that I was looking, those flights were that cheap. So obviously I've had this dream, all these doors are opening. I am thinking, oh, something massive is going to happen here. I must be meeting someone. God's going to do something extraordinary. And yet on my way to the airport, I stopped in at a Christian bookstore and I thought, I might just grab a book to take with me. And I went in and my hand just reached out without any control and picked out this book. And it was by a man I'd never heard of. His name was Sean Bowles, and it was called Translating God. And I just went, oh, this must be what I'm meant to take. Didn't even look at it properly and paid for it, popped it in my bag. And so I arrive in Bali. And again, I keep looking for like, who do you want me to talk to, God? Like, is someone going to come and meet me? You know, that's the type of expectation I had. And yet I started reading this book. And I'm in this villa looking out over the ocean and just cannot put this book down. And it's talking about spiritual abuse. It's talking about hearing God's voice with love, the integrity of the prophetic, how important it is. And I could feel it, like my heart was just coming alive. And it was also healing areas where it had been so badly treated by Christian leaders in the prophetic area. And yet I was still going, okay, God, like, what are you wanting to do here? Come on. And I was like putting all this pressure on because one, I'd actually gone to a whole nother country within 2 days of receiving the dream. And all these people were helping out with my family. And I felt this pressure to be able to go back and tell a good story. But all I was doing was reading this book. And honestly, this book, looking back now, this book was what it was all about. It was God speaking to me through that book, allowing it to heal my heart, but also shifting the trajectory of what I do in Arise, what I do in my ministry, just bringing the prophetic gift back to me, because I kind of dropped it because I thought, I'm not seeing anyone doing this with love or doing it well. And this book just absolutely spoke into that. And I felt God put it back in my hands. And so I guess I wanted to share that one, is because often we just put all this pressure on for God to speak in a certain way, to move in a certain way. And when we go away, it's often like these little shifts that he does in our heart, these little aha moments. And it's not like, storms and thunder. It's like that gentle whisper in the wind. And it's catching those. It's allowing them to settle into heart. It's also trusting that if God's called us to come away, then he's got intention and there's a reason. It could be just to bring you peace. It could be to speak to you. It could be just to dust you off from just the hard season that you've had. And just, so what I see him doing there is like, he just is like, see how that happened to you? That wasn't me and that wasn't okay. And I'm just going to remove that from you, and I'm going to speak truth over you and who you are. And so it's those gentle moments when we go away that is so powerful and has lasting ramifications and lasting effect, and that ripple effect from those times away with God. There's been other times that I've gone away with him where it's just been this desire, I was like, I really want to go away with you, God. I just can't shake it. It's like a yearning. And I know that there's people listening today that have a yearning. I know some of the stories that I've shared, you're like, I want that too. And so he's saying, yes, that's you. I'm inviting you to come away with me. And so when I start to feel that yearning, I'll tell Maddie, I'm like, I just really feel like God's calling me to come away with him soon. I'm not sure when, but what works in our diary? Where can we find a bit of space for me to have a couple of days away with God? And so we'll sit down and we'll work it out. And then I'll be like, okay, so I'll have a couple of dates that I can work with. And then I'll go, okay, well, where do I desire to go? And this one time, all I could think about was staying right on the beach of Noosa, so that I could just grab my board, go surfing, come back, journal, just relax. I just kept seeing this one particular hotel and I couldn't shake it. And I'm like, oh, that place is very expensive, but I'll give them a call. And I just had this thought of like, call them. And so I called them. And because I spoke to them directly, they offered me, it was an insane amount off. It was like 40 or 50% off in that time that Matt and I had decided, yes, that would work for me and for him, for me to go away. And so I ended up there. So it's like lightly testing doors, being aware of, well, what does my heart desire? Do I want to go up to the mountains? Do I feel like going into the city? Do I want to be by the beach? Do I want to be in the country? Just being aware of that and just lightly testing doors, because God will will make a way for you. He'll look after your family. He'll make a way for you to get there. So I guess he's so creative in the way he invites us and draws us away. Another time someone just offered me a couple of nights away at their resort because they just really felt God was wanting to do that. So there's just all these amazing ways that God invites us to come away with him. But I really believe, and I know this is part of his strategy, particularly in this day and age, for us to take that intentional time out and go away with him. It also means having fun with him. So that's something that I've found whenever I go away. He's so fun because I'll be like, okay, what do we do now? He's like, go for a surf with me. And so I'll head out for a surf, and it's just such a fun surf. Or, it's just that permission to have fun as well. And yeah, there's always a reason why he draws us away, and it won't ever be the same as the last time. But what you'll find is there'll be clarity. You will be exquisitely loved. Like, you will feel his love. There'll be favor over you. And yeah, he will give strategy. He will just tenderly speak to you, and there'll be slight or big shifts that take place in your heart that will be forever shifts that will it's just like lightly adjusting the direction that you're headed so that you're in the right lane and on the right path. And he's just so kind like that. So I'm just going to pray now for anyone who's feeling stirred, is feeling that yearning, is knowing that God is inviting them to come away with him. So Lord, I just thank you for just your strategy and the way that you love us so well, and that you are craving just as much as we are craving. Actually, you're craving it even more, to have that one-on-one time with us, to speak to us, to show us what has been happening in the season before, but also what's to come. I know, Lord, that there is healing when we go away with you, and all sorts of things of wonder. So right now, Lord, I just ask for those who know that you're inviting them to come away with you, that you make a way, that you confirm it for them today, that you help them lightly test doors. And Lord, that they know that they are worthy. So I just feel like there's a lie that some people are believing that, oh, God wouldn't ask me to go away with them. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough to go away with him. And he's saying that's a lie. You are so worthy. You're so precious. And I am inviting you to come away with me. So Lord, I thank you even now that you're speaking truth into that. So yeah, Lord, I thank you for just how you're the perfect Father. And it is the safest place for us to rest our hearts and our head is in your presence. So Lord, I thank you for that. And yeah, I'm excited for what's to come from those that go away with you in the next couple of months or over this year. In your name, amen. So I'd love to hear some stories of when you go away with God. So please let me know. It just brings me such joy. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. Mwah! Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.